on Tuesday at 2:47 p.m. I found myself replaced by a cheap cotton hoodie as my wife's sister, the self-proclaimed CEO, terminated my employment and withheld my $250,000 bonus. At the Series B meeting, the lead investor examined my termination file and pushed it back across the table, saying to her, "Congratulations, you just lost your company." Sitting in the glass conference room overlooking the very office I helped construct from scratch, I felt the reality of being replaced by a company hoodie and a $50 Visa gift card, handed out like participation trophies at a kindergarten event. My wife's sister, Miranda, who never wrote a single line of code, smiled falsely as she slid the items across the mahogany table. Her smile didn't touch her eyes, instead adopting that chilling, lifeless stare people use when they're pretending sympathy, yet craving your departure to resume their expensive latte and self-aggrandizing LinkedIn post about executing tough leadership decisions. I glanced at the hoodie, navy blue with the company logo, a design I had worked on embroidered in costly golden thread more pricey per square inch than my severance payment. Shifting my gaze back to her flawlessly sculpted face, I remarked, "Remarkable, the insulation included in my severance. How considerate. Does it also come in disguised betrayal color? Or is navy the exclusive option for those you're mistreating today?" She chuckled as if granting me a generous favor, as though I should be thankful she even bothered to toss me a scrap on my way out. That chuckle, pal, it was the kind that sends shivers down your spine and makes you doubt if you left anything valuable behind. A sound like champagne flutes ringing at an exclusive event you weren't privy to, despite having shelled out for the venue. My $250,000 contractually owed performance bonus, the one I had been counting on both fiscally and metaphorically, the one meant to help me settle my student debts and perhaps, just possibly, plan a holiday beyond Black Friday sales, was conspicuously withheld under the pretext of restructuring, whatever that cryptic term implied. Absolutely certain that reformulating rationales is merely corporate jargon for, "We're hoarding your funds because we can, and what possible options do you have in response, underdog?" The father, who once commanded my admiration as the chairman and founder, with whom I'd collaborated till dawn on pitch decks and investor presentations, now sat alongside her, feigning interest in his coffee mug, as if it concealed the mysteries of the universe. He averted his gaze from me, only rotating that mug, seemingly searching for answers to unanswerable questions. I found myself scrutinizing the company emblem, having designed it years ago when we were based in his garage and subsisted on ramen for 6 consecutive evenings each week. My wife, Danielle, steadfastly avoided meeting my eyes. She occupied the final seat at the table, my very own wife, the one I'd been bonded with for 7 years, the one who swore loyalty during thick and thin, seemed engrossed in her manicured nails, as if they held the secret to existence. She wouldn't deign to look at me. It felt like I had vanished from sight, or worse yet, became an awkward relative, akin to a Thanksgiving guest who persists in discussing conspiracy theories. It was then that realization struck, with the force of a freight train laden with irony and adorned with betrayal as its topper. I'd just been dismissed by kin. Not merely any family, but the one I'd assisted in constructing a multi-million-dollar business for. The ones I relied on. The ones to whom I had given my 20s, my well-being, my sanity, and evidently, my capacity to perceive when I was being gradually nudged off a precipice. All I received was an ill-smelling, cheap hoodie that hinted at deceit, corporate overconfidence, and the chemicals they use to manufacture quickly deteriorating promotional items. Plus, $50. Let's not forget the $50. That could have covered a week's worth of groceries. Almost. I gripped the hoodie, realizing it held about as much weight as their gratitude, which was close to nothing. The material was that strange synthetic blend that makes you perspire when it's warm and offers no comfort when it's cold, an apt symbol for this entire predicament. "Do you have a receipt?" I inquired, attempting to maintain my composure despite my desire to shout, just in case I wished to exchange it for something more valuable, perhaps my self-respect or simply store credit. Miranda's smile turned grim. "They believe this is a generous offering considering the situation. Despite constructing the foundation of the profitable platform you all benefit from, "You were justly compensated for your efforts," she said, her voice adopting an HR-sanctioned tone, indicating the discussion was concluded, and it's expected that I accept this turn of events like a dutiful ex-employee. Finally looking up from his coffee mug, his eyes met mine briefly before swiftly averting them, much like a remorseful pet aware of its misdeeds. "Jordan, we value your contributions to the company. This is merely a business decision. Just business." Indeed, nothing epitomizes just business quite like dismissing one's son-in-law in a transparent conference room, where all office personnel are privy to the spectacle. A macabre reenactment of a reality show where the beloved character is ousted by those he believed were his allies. I stood up, holding my hoodie like a trophy from the world's most disheartening contest, and took the gift card. 50 complete dollars. I felt the intensity of everyone's gazes upon me. The staff outside the glass enclosures, those I had guided and hired, feigning work while they watched this spectacle as if it were more engaging than any Netflix series. "Well," I said, pushing my chair back in because my mother had taught me well, even though these individuals didn't seem to share her values. "Thanks for the recollections. And the hoodie, I'll cherish it eternally. Or at least until it shrinks in the wash, which, considering its quality, should be approximately next Tuesday." I moved towards the door and Miranda called out to me, "Your access will be revoked by the end of the day. Security will see you out." Naturally, they would. For what better way to convey, "We appreciate your efforts," than having a 19-year-old security guard named Brad supervise you as you pack your desk into a cardboard box, making it appear as if you're some sort of thief who might make off with the office supplies on your departure. Leaving that meeting room, I passed desks I'd assisted in selecting, motivational posters I've always found ludicrous, a coffee machine I personally financed when the firm was cash-strapped, and it struck me not anger, but clarity. It's the kind of lucidity one gains upon recognizing that you've been engaged in chess with individuals oblivious to the rules, believing knight moves straight ahead and checkmate is a mere suggestion. They believed they triumphed. They thought they eliminated the issue, discarded excess baggage, streamlined the share structure, using corporate jargon to conceal their mistreatment of workers. However, underestimating people can be incredibly exhilarating when one proves them wrong, and I harbored a sense, a small, enticing feeling hidden beneath humiliation and astonishment, that this wasn't the end. Far from it. Stepped out from that structure clad in a fresh hoodie, $50 wealthier, yet $250,000 impoverished, yet clutching something indestructible. I knew the locations of all concealed corpses, metaphorically speaking. At times, information surpasses monetary value. It can be priceless. Occasionally, it's everything. It wasn't always this absurd, you understand. Once upon a time, we were united. When aspirations overshadowed egos and no one donned designer clothing for gatherings because there were none, as everyone was engrossed in real work. I became part of the organization when it was merely an unformed concept. Merely sketches on napkins and a two-car garage in Pasadena that carried odors of burnt pizza, aged energy drinks, and the tenacity born from believing one is destined to revolutionize the world with nothing but makeshift laptops and sheer determination. This transpired before the establishment of the sleek office, with the brick walls exposed and the artisanal coffee bar. During those days, office perks meant someone remembering to stock the bathroom we shared with the garage water heater with toilet paper. At that time, Miranda was unfamiliar with terms like motherboard. Casually speaking, she believed it came pre-installed with Wi-Fi, much like a household appliance you could buy at Best Buy. She inquired if it was available in white while I was struggling to diagnose the reason behind our system's regular crashes every 47 minutes. Miranda's father, Richard before he was only referred to as Mr. Chun or Sir at work, had a keen business acumen. He had made money in real estate, had connections with investors, grasped market trends, and all the jargon that sounds impressive at social gatherings. However, technology was a different ball game for him. A man, barely capable of sending an email without accidentally CCing his entire contact list and attaching the same file multiple times, was in need of assistance. That's where I stepped in. having recently graduated from Carnegie Mellon with a computer science degree, foolishly trusting that talent and effort would make a difference, and gullibly expecting to be acknowledged for building something from scratch later on. At 24, I was convinced I would become the next tech success story. As it turned out, only half of that prediction was accurate, the success story part, but the wrong party ended up taking credit for it. We used to work tirelessly in that garage, subsisting on pizza from a place so frequently visited by us that the delivery man, Marcus, memorized our order and started showing up unprompted at midnight. The order was an extra-large pepperoni, breadsticks, and a 2-liter of Mountain Dew. In retrospect, we would give him money that wasn't easily spare, as nobody had instructed us about dietary diversity when launching a startup. I would be hunching over my laptop, coding tirelessly until my eyes ached excessively, constructing the software framework which would eventually evolve into the system Miranda now attributes to her invention and design. Richard would stride around, discussing market prospects and pitch ideas to investors, displaying genuine enthusiasm for the potential outcomes. As for Miranda, her role primarily consisted of providing snacks. She'd arrive around 7 with goods from Trader Joe's, offering hummus and pita chips, perhaps some dark chocolate peanut butter cups. Then she'd settle on the old couch, flicking through Instagram occasionally, inquiring about progress with a casual, "How's it going?" as if inquiring about a school project. In the evenings, my then-girlfriend, Danielle, would drop by following her nursing shifts, still clad in scrubs and bearing real meals rich in vegetables and protein. She'd sit beside me as I coded, massaging my shoulders and expressing her pride. "You're going to revolutionize this, darling," she'd say, planting a kiss on my head. "I can sense it. This is destined for greatness." We all shared her conviction. That was the charm of our garage days. Everyone felt equal, seated on fold-up chairs, with the grandest luxury being that someone was dispensing name-brand soda instead of the bland generic stuff that tasted like sorrow and artificial sweeteners. Richard frequently reiterated his sentiments. "One day, this will be monumental. One day, people will discuss what we constructed here." He'd wave his hand around the garage as if it was already a sanctuary for innovation. Just as the oil spot on the floor and the corner piled high with ancient Christmas ornaments were destined to be part of his TED Talks backstory, I genuinely believed him. Alas, I inexplicably placed faith in him. I relinquished everything. My intellect, every algorithm, every code line, every architectural choice that transformed the platform from a mere idea into an operational entity, rather than another startup doomed to fail before it even registered on anyone's radar. I surrendered my weekends, which eventually became every weekend for 3 consecutive years. I yielded my evenings, my mornings, and my lunch hours, using them to troubleshoot instead of savoring them. I handed over my posture, a question mark-shaped spine from spending too much time seated at a desk that was merely a $15 garage sale find. I sacrificed relationships with my college friends because I was perpetually engrossed in work. I surrendered my health, greetings, 30 pounds gained from my pizza and Mountain Dew routine, accompanied by chronic stress headaches and the involuntary twitching of my left side when pondering deadlines. I offered them my faith in humanity, my knack for trust, and apparently my wisdom as well. For if I possessed any, I would have obtained every agreement in written form from the start, rather than relying on handshakes and verbal promises from individuals who regarded me as kin until it became troublesome. The epiphany struck me on a Tuesday in March at 4 in the morning. For weeks, I labored over the user authentication system, striving to make it both secure and swift, an endeavor akin to making something both fireproof and paper-made. And then, all of a sudden, it dawned on me. I perceived how to construct the entirety of it, how to create it in a manner that was not only functional but aesthetically pleasing as well. I barked so loudly, it roused Richard from his slumber on the couch, clutching his phone. I had found the solution. I bellowed. I deduced it. Baffled and likely imagining a fire, he sprang to his feet and asked, "What happened?" "The authentication system." I cracked the code. And then, surprisingly, he embraced me, a 50-something businessman in worn khakis and a frayed polo shirt, hugging a sleep-deprived Jordan who probably hadn't bathed in days. "You're brilliant, Jordan," he declared. "We couldn't pull this off without you. You realize that, don't you? You're the core of this entire venture, the central figure." The phrase "heart of the operation" stuck with me later, particularly during the termination, pondering at what stage does the heart of an operation become replaceable? When does one consider the heart as expendable, opting instead for something cost-effective that appeals to investors? Miranda arrived later that morning with Krispy Kreme donuts, the premium ones, not the supermarket variety, and appeared genuinely joyful for me. "This is fantastic, Jordan," she exclaimed, and her tone suggested sincerity. "You're extraordinary." Danielle dropped by following her work, and we spent time in that garage consuming donuts and cheap champagne purchased from a nearby liquor store, celebrating our anticipated future prosperity. To us, Richard proposed, lifting his plastic cup, to the team destined to transform everything. To the team, we all responded, and I recall thinking, this is it. This is what success feels like, not the wealth or the acclaim or any of that, merely sharing a garage with people who acknowledge you, people who recognize your worth, people who are thankful for your contributions. Reflecting on it now, I recognize that day as one of the last genuine moments of happiness shared with any of them. Afterward, things began to shift imperceptibly at first, too gradually for me to notice. However, they did change. The garage morphed into a full-blown office space. Folding chairs were swapped out for Herman Miller designs. Our pizza meals turned into fancy lunches from popular eateries. And amidst all this refinement, I transitioned from being the heart of the operation to a former contractor offering technical support. It's quite ironic, isn't it? The very people who once thanked me for saving the company ended up giving me a hoodie as if freeing a hostage. The person who laid the groundwork was pushed out before anyone could witness the completed building. But on that Tuesday in March at 5:30 am, sipping cheap champagne from a plastic cup, I was oblivious to all of this. I was merely happy, proud, naively believing loyalty held significance. I was sorely mistaken. The signs were abundant, blaring as if through a loudspeaker. Yet I disregarded them like a fool, under the illusion that dedication and compliance would miraculously steer me towards favor. Alas, life doesn't function that way. Neither does this situation. With hindsight being 20/20, I was stumbling about, donning rose-tinted glasses and a fool's cap. It began subtly, so subtle it almost slipped my notice, which I suspect was the intention. Initially, my name was omitted from the product acknowledgments. You know, that tiny part in the application where everyone who constructed the product is listed. I transitioned from being recognized as the lead developer and co-founder to simply vanishing, disappearing, as if erased by a corporate Thanos deciding I no longer fitted into his grand scheme. During our product demonstration for potential investors, I discovered my name was missing from the credits on the app displayed on the conference room screen, despite me being the primary coder. Later, I mentioned this to Miranda, attempting to maintain a casual tone as I didn't want to seem overly concerned or petty. She responded that they were simplifying the presentation by removing names for a cleaner design. However, her explanation was unrelated to reality. The events didn't cease. Instead, it was merely the prelude to the disappearing act in my own sphere. Subsequently, my presence was erased from the investor presentations. You are familiar with those PowerPoint slides, aren't you? The ones that shape or break funding rounds. The narrative of a company and the persuasion of wealthy individuals to provide funds? Yes, those. Initially, I was showcased on slide 3, following the problem statement and preceding the team introduction. My photo, along with a brief bio detailing my background at Carnegie Mellon and software architecture experience, were included. However, one day, just like that, I vanished, replaced by a slide featuring only Miranda and her father, accompanied by vague text about our seasoned leadership team, steeped in technology and business. But the deepest roots in technology appeared to be updating Instagram stories. Yet, we opted for this description. I stumbled upon this alteration unintentionally. Passing by the conference room, where my impending termination unfolded later, somewhat poetically ironic, I observed Miranda practicing her presentation. Through the glass, I stood, observing as a slide appeared, causing an unexplained sinking sensation in my gut. It was like watching oneself being effaced in real life, akin to Back to the Future when Marty begins vanishing from photographs, except no one attempted a fix. Instead, I was fading away undisturbed. The group chat incident followed, an event that arguably should have served as my wake-up call, the moment I should have gathered my belongings and left swiftly. Yet, I still clung to the delusion that we were all friends, family even, united in our shared endeavor. We had a Slack channel named Founding Team where myself, Miranda, Richard, and Tom, our early CFO, discussed strategies, exchanged updates, and made crucial decisions about the company's future direction. One day, I posted about an urgent security update required immediately, as our user count had reached 50,000 and our system was essentially bound together with digital duct tape and hopes. No response came for hours. I kept scrutinizing my phone, reloading Slack, wondering if there might be a malfunction. Around 6 p.m., Miranda replied, but only with a thumbs-up emoji to a message about a critical security matter that could have jeopardized the entire business had it gone awry. I messaged Tom directly, "Hey, did you catch my post in the Founding Team group?" His reply was, "What group?" I received in response. My blood ran cold. The Founding Team group, a channel we've been using for around 2 years, it seemed. 3 dots appeared, then vanished, then reappeared. Finally, Tom said, "I'm not part of a group called that. There's a leadership team group, but you aren't." Hang on, he didn't respond after that. Later, I discovered the change. They established a fresh channel, transferred everyone except me to it, and kept me in the old one, composing messages into an empty space akin to a digital spirit lingering within the Slack platform. Periodically, someone would re-enter the old channel with acknowledgments like thanks, emojis, or got it, merely to maintain appearances. However, all genuine interactions occurred elsewhere beyond my view. Upon inquiring from Miranda regarding the situation, she offered a rehearsed smile, one typically used by politicians before lying to your face under the guise of acting for your benefit. "We're streamlining communication, Jordan," she explained. "Too many channels, too much noise. We aim to be more productive." Productive, I echoed, finding the word bitter like poison on my tongue. So productive that I was excluded from discussions about the company I contributed to building. "You're still part of the tech team channel," she replied, suggesting it as a concession. Discussions concerning the company's development took place in the tech team channel. I had gone from being a co-founder to a mere developer, transitioning from someone who made decisions to someone executing others, from a recognized individual to simply another component in the system. It was then that the interns began taking notice. One day, Kevin, an intern brimming with the same zeal that reminded me of the joy I felt while working there, approached me in the break room. His demeanor suggested he was about to share a secret he wasn't supposed to know. "Hey, man," he murmured, ensuring no one listened. "Your picture isn't on the company website anymore." Right then and there, I pulled out my phone, went to the About Us page, and as Kevin predicted, the page that once displayed 4 headshots now showed only 3. Miranda, Richard, and Tom, all with professional smiles, as if they had just won an entrepreneurship award. I'm nowhere to be found, as if I never existed. It seems the server might have an allergy to loyalty. I tried to joke about it, though it felt like a punch to the gut. Kevin didn't laugh. He just looked at me with a blend of pity and bewilderment, as if he couldn't fathom why I remained or hadn't yet understood the situation. "That's really messed up," he said. I agreed. "It is." That was when I first grasped that I wasn't just being left out, I was being erased. Systematically, deliberately wiped out. They were rewriting history, and I was the inconvenient chapter they wanted to expunge. Every vestige of my input was being removed, as if I was an unwanted glitch or a mistake that needed fixing, a flaw in the code that required debugging. From that point on, I began to store all relevant information. Screenshots of the previous website bearing my name, duplicates of the initial investor decks, emails in which Richard and Miranda acknowledged my contributions and considered me crucial to the company's prosperity. I wasn't sure what I intended to do with it all, but a gut feeling prompted me to keep track, to have evidence of my existence, my importance, and the work I had indeed accomplished. Because when enough people insist you are insignificant, just technical support, disposable, doubts start to creep in. You question your own recollections, your value, your very reality. However, I had the emails, the screenshots, and even the code itself stored in repositories with my name attached to every commit. They might remove me from their presentations, websites, and chat platforms, but they couldn't expunge the facts. Looking back, I should have foreseen the situation. The elimination was merely prelude, smoothing the way before they executed their plan. They were crafting a tale in which my significance was negligible, where my accomplishments held little weight, and my termination would go unnoticed. Essentially, they were editing me out of the narrative long before I was evicted from the premises. For a time, I almost let them succeed during a late night when organizing my digital estate, because even as they erased my existence, I was still expected to arrange my own digital obituary. A new folder on the shared drive, titled Final Founding Narrative, was a clear warning signal, one as glaring as Texas itself, when I wasn't consulted about the storyline of the company I helped build. It was 11:30 on a Thursday, and I was the last one in the office due to my foolish belief that staying late symbolized dedication. Everyone else had left for their personal lives, families, and typical human activities that didn't include the slow realization of being betrayed by those trusted. In the dim overhead lighting, my desk lamp created odd shadows on my keyboard as I sifted through folders and saved files to my external hard drive, intuition prompting me that I might need them in the future. The shared drive was structured like a digital junk drawer, with layers of folders and miscellaneous files labeled in ways that suggested nobody at the startup had mastered document version control, such as final underscore v3 underscore use underscore this underscore one, docs. I was scrolling through, only partially focused, when I spotted it. A freshly created folder from 3 days prior titled Final Founding Narrative. I should have closed it. I ought to have honored the privacy boundary of that folder and continued packing my belongings. However, my curiosity led me to disregard this caution, which seemed about to transform a software developer into an extremist. I clicked on it, revealing the folder's contents. Inside was a 37-page document titled Company Origin Story, Investor Materials. Perusing through 37 pages, I finished my now cold coffee and began reading. The initial page was routine, discussing market potential, our solution to a problem, and why timing was opportune. The second page detailed Richard's business background, his real estate successes, and his innovative leadership, all of which appeared accurate, more or less. The third page, however, piqued my interest. Miranda Chun, the founder and CEO, conceived the original platform architecture in early 2019. I pondered over the sentence 3 times, questioning if it was a symptom of a stroke, if the fluorescent lights had damaged my brain, or if I had fallen asleep at my desk, with this scenario merely being a stress-induced dream triggered by excessive caffeine and insufficient therapy. Miranda devised the platform's architecture. Miranda, who perceived a motherboard as a Wi-Fi attachment. Miranda, who inquired whether we needed additional memory. Miranda, who was entirely unaware of what an API entailed until I described it using a restaurant analogy that I had to repeat thrice. Reading further only exacerbated the situation. Her competence in computer science and software engineering deteriorated the situation even more, causing me to chuckle audibly at that point. Her knowledge in computer science stemmed from a single introductory course she took as an elective and abandoned midway due to excessive math. Software engineering, she had none. Miranda single-handedly designed and constructed the core platform over a span of 18 months, leaving me in disbelief that she also mastered iPhone wallpaper changes. Initially stunned, I sat back contemplating how gravity could be falsifiable, questioning my entire perception. Upon further examination, I found my name listed as a contributor on page 23 under the Key Contributors and Support Staff section, acknowledging Jordan Hayes' technical input during the initial development phase that contributed to the company's success. initially categorized as a technical assistance provider, a term synonymous with the employee who connects devices or freelancers hired for minor design enhancements. I was responsible for executing certain sections of her design, yet not serving as the lead developer or co-founder. Despite investing 3 years constructing every feature from the ground up, I found myself in a supporting role, much like a temporary worker contracted through an agency. It was this incident that marked my transformation into a villain, effectively shattering any residual loyalty, goodwill, or optimism I harbored. I remained seated in the deserted office, the only sounds being the server hum in the adjacent room, servers which I had configured. In that moment, an internal change occurred within me. I did not raise my voice. Instead of hurling my coffee mug against the wall, providing temporary relief, I refrained from such actions. Abstaining from sending furious emails or barging into someone's office in a rage, as depicted in movies when someone learns they've been deceived, I opted for a composed expression. A chilling, frozen smile, one that would have startled me if I could view my own reflection. I initiated another browser tab and commenced the downloading process of everything. Not just a few files, but all of them. Every email referencing my contributions, every Slack conversation where Richard or Miranda acknowledged my problem-solving abilities, every commit message in our code repository with my name attached to the work, every version of every document that listed me as a co-founder, every contract, every agreement, every paper trail confirming I wasn't merely a contractor offering technical assistance. I established a new folder on my external hard drive, named it Insurance Policy, and set the downloads in motion. Some of these files were sizable. Copies of meeting videos, comprehensive database backups, and design documents marked with my notes. My computer laboriously transferred large amounts of data as I pondered their unintelligent actions. It struck me that expunging someone wasn't simply a matter of removing them from the website or presentation slides. It required meticulous attention to detail. You needed to scrutinize every document, every email, and every digital trace, and they had failed to do so. Laziness or arrogance, or perhaps a combination of both, had led them to believe I'd meekly depart with my hoodie and $50, slinking off like an obedient terminated worker. But while I was downloading, I discovered something more valuable than evidence of my efforts. I stumbled upon the original founder agreement, the one drafted by Richard's lawyer during our garage days when we were all still playing the part of amicable friends. The individual who legally designated me as a co-owner of the fundamental intellectual property, granting me 22% equity in the company's essential technology. That's 22%. A document dated March 2019, bearing my signature and Richard's, notarized. An intriguing detail emerged when I discovered they had never revised it, never filed a new agreement, nor requested another signature from me. Instead, they had seemingly overlooked it or considered it inconsequential or underestimated my ability to uncover it. Upon opening the PDF and scrutinizing the signatures, I found myself staring in disbelief for about 5 minutes. I owned 22% of the core IP. The IP upon which the entire company was constructed. The IP that Miranda had claimed to conceive and design herself. The IP currently valued at roughly $19 million as per the latest investor presentation. Doing a quick mental calculation, 22% of $19 million equates to approximately $4.18 million. Approximately 3 copies of the document were saved in various locations, one on an external hard drive, another on Google Drive personally, and one attached to an email with the subject, "Do not delete, important legal doc." To ensure safety, additional copies were saved, considering the value of the multi-million-dollar insurance policy I held, which my previous employers were unaware of. The downloads concluded around 2 in the morning. My external hard drive was filled with evidence, documents, contracts, and most importantly, the founder agreement bearing both our signatures and notarized, legally binding stamp. I collected my belongings, switched off the computer, and departed from that office, feeling like a transformed individual compared to the one who had entered. The anger and pain were no longer present. I wasn't consumed by complex feelings like confusion or betrayal that had tormented me for months. Instead, I remained patient, focused and extremely intrigued about the unfolding events. Miranda had woven herself a charming fairy tale, portraying herself as the sole genius founder who constructed everything independently. She crafted a storyline in which my presence was insignificant, where my contributions were negligible, and I was merely a forgettable contractor offering occasional assistance. However, I'd come to discover that narratives could be altered, and I had the evidence, all of it, meticulously saved and backed up multiple times. If they wished to manipulate history, so be it. The game was on. But they should have taken into account something crucial about individuals who construct platforms from the ground up. We possess an exceptional ability to comprehend systems, locate weaknesses, and pinpoint strategic vulnerabilities. And their vulnerability lay stored on my external hard drive, in a folder named Insurance Policy. Biding my time to perfectly dismantle their orchestrated charade, I needed restraint, allow them to savor their perceived triumph, the one who outsmarted the contractor who lent a hand with some technical matters. And then, when they were utterly unprepared, demonstrate the consequences of underestimating the person who actually crafted the asset they sought to pilfer. 2 weeks passed before it became official. Apparent fact that gradually removing someone from existence isn't sufficient. One must also subject them to the degrading ceremony of a dismissal meeting, laden with corporate jargon and feigned empathy that makes one yearn for escape. The calendar invitation arrived on a Monday morning. A swift catch-up with Miranda and Richard. Standard procedure. They couldn't even bring themselves to use an honest meeting title. It could have been titled, Termination Today. I hope you didn't have other engagements. Or the part where we feign impersonality. Or simply corporate termination. Please dress appropriately. I knew what was imminent clearly, following my discovery of the founder's narrative document and my subsequent collection of every piece of evidence. I had been bracing for this encounter. The only uncertainty was their method. Would they attempt to make it appear mutual, attributed to budget constraints, attributed to me no longer being a cultural match, which is corporate jargon for, we don't care for you, but we can't legally say that. I opted for my finest attire that day, not because I wished to appear professional, but because I wanted them to perceive exactly whom they were undermining. Navy blazer, smart shirt, the well-fitting jeans. In front of the mirror, I mused, this is the most expensive dismissal these people will ever rue. The meeting was scheduled for 2:30, deliberately tactical. Even though many had gone for lunch or were occupied in meetings, limiting potential onlookers, they selected the transparent conference room, right in the heart of the office for maximum visibility. It suggested either remarkable foolishness or overbearing arrogance, likely a blend of both. Punctual as ever, I arrived, carrying my laptop and a notebook, feigning this was merely another routine meeting. Miranda was already present, seated at the head of the table as if presiding over a board session. Her father remained on her right, still engrossed in his coffee mug as if it held some secret charm. A folder before Miranda, likely termination documents, and next to it sat a company sweatshirt and what appeared to be a gift voucher, an impending spectacle indeed. I took my seat facing them, offered a friendly grin, and asked, so, what's the news then? The meeting invite suggested, brief catch-up. Was I supposed to prepare status reports? Miranda's smile was as fake as plastic, cold enough to chill milk, harden it, and potentially use it as a weapon. Jordan, great seeing you here. I assumed you were aware of the company undergoing some transformations. Transformations? You mean that? I couldn't help but nod as if this was entirely new information. Ah, right. I noticed my name was missing from the website. That seemed to be one of the changes. For a brief moment, her smile faltered. We are reorganizing the company to match our growth path. I had to hold back my laughter. Growth path, they could turn dismissal into a favor, making it seem like removing you from their growth path was doing you a kindness, so you wouldn't get hurt by all the success they were about to achieve without you. In this restructuring process, she stated, smoothly moving into her prepared statement as if rehearsed in front of a mirror, we've chosen to move away from some of our initial contractor agreements. Contractual associations. There it was. The new terminology already crafted. Not a co-founder, not the lead developer, not the person who constructed the entire platform. Just a contractor. A temporary individual. Richard finally lifted his gaze from his mug. Jordan, we want you to understand how valuable your efforts have been for the company. You've been useful. Useful. I'd been useful. Like a summer intern who made good coffee and organized the supply closet. This must be challenging for you, I said, adopting my most empathetic tone. Dismissing family, isn't that a bit painful? Miranda's countenance turned frosty. This is a business decision, Jordan. It's not personal. Absolutely. I concur. Completely impersonal, I echoed. She disregarded your comment about the conference room being for privacy and instead pushed the separation agreement toward you. It comes with a substantial severance package. Guessing ahead, it seems the offer also includes outerwear. Richard cleared his throat. There's additionally a $50 gift card included. To wear, you inquire. She slid the hoodie toward you as if it were a gesture of peace. This inexpensive promotional merchandise is meant to compensate for taking your company, your equity, and your credit for all you've accomplished here. We thought you might appreciate something to commemorate your time with us. You picked up the hoodie, assessing its weight in your hands. Likely costing them around $20 each item, possibly cheaper if purchased in larger quantities. I returned her a sincere grin. Wow, my severance includes insulation. How considerate. Is backstabbed gray an option, or is navy the sole choice for those being undermined today? She didn't chuckle. Her father squirmed uneasily in his seat, and I could sense Miranda tapping her meticulously manicured nails on the table, a clear sign of growing agitation. Good. I wanted her irritated. I wanted her uncomfortable. I wanted her to recall this moment later when everything collapses. There's also the issue of your bonus, she said, attempting to steer the conversation back on track. Regrettably, due to the reorganization, we won't be able to fulfill the performance bonus as stipulated in the original contract. Ah, there it was, the $250,000. They were nonchalantly opting not to pay me. Reorganization reasons, I replied. That's being referred to as theft, but Miranda argued, her voice growing more intense, it's not theft. Instead, she described it as a business move influenced by present financial constraints and the preference for keeping funds instead of compensating the person who truly deserves it. I agreed. I understand. It's about financial realities. Richard eventually chimed in, Jordan, you're being unfairly critical. We're providing you with a reasonable deal given the situation. I looked at him, the man who had embraced me in his garage at 4 in the morning, who had labeled me as brilliant, who had said I was vital to the operation. Reasonable, I whispered back. You think this is reasonable? He couldn't meet my gaze, his eyes instead returning to the coffee mug as if it contained answers to the universe's mysteries. Standing up, I pulled the hoodie tightly against me like a prize won in a disheartening contest and picked up the gift card. It was worth $50, almost enough for a week's worth of groceries. Almost. Well, I remarked, pushing my chair back, instilled with courtesy by my upbringing, even when faced with deceivers and thieves, a nod to the past. The hoodie, I'll keep it dear until it possibly shinks in the laundry, an event likely on next Tuesday given its quality. Miranda stood up as well, attempting to rein in this dialogue that had clearly veered off course from her plan. Your access here will terminate by close of day. They'll guide you out to gather your belongings. Security, I echoed. Apparently, I'm quite hazardous. May raid the stationery room on my exit. See to it, Miranda. I'm feeling rather reckless. I moved towards the door, and she called out, likely seeking to have the final say, needing to exert her authority one more time. Jordan, I trust you comprehend, this is not personal. At times, companies must make hard decisions to progress forward. Standing at the threshold, I faced the two of them, ensconced in their pricey chairs within their glass conference room, flaunting a company they claimed as their own, weaving a fabricated tale about who constructed what. Let me tell you something amusing, I said. I sincerely hope this is purely business. If it's personal, then your actions stem from genuine dislike for me. But if it's only business, it implies you believe you can get away with this. And frankly, that's much more engaging. Miranda's countenance flashed a look of bewilderment. What do you mean by that? I chuckled, genuinely this time, not the hollow corporate smiles we've all been donning like masks. Just an observation. I exited the conference room with my hoodie in hand, maintaining most of my pride amidst everyone in the office discreetly observing yet pretending not to. The gazes directed at me felt palpable, a mix of anticipation and curiosity to witness any potential outbursts or displays of emotion. Yet, I refrained from any such scenes. Instead, I walked coolly to my desk where a 19-year-old security guard named Brad was already there, looking remorseful due to the awkwardness, but aware of his duty and the necessity of his paycheck. "Hey, Brad," I greeted, retrieving items from my drawer. Prepared for the spectacle of watching me pack 3 years of my life into a cardboard box? Should be quite the show. "I'm sorry, man," Brad responded grimly. "This is terrible." "Indeed," I concurred, transferring pens and notebooks to the box. "Indeed, it was unfortunate. But what others didn't know, couldn't see, was that I wasn't despondent or shattered. Instead, I was patient. Instead of playing the game they assumed we were engaged in, they believed they had triumphed, believing they had resolved an issue, streamlined their ownership structure, and discarded another expendable employee. Little did they know what lay ahead. They didn't realize that I possessed their founding agreement, emails, documents, a comprehensive record of their operations, all neatly organized and safeguarded in triplicate. Leaving the building with my cardboard box and wearing my emblematic hoodie, I couldn't suppress a genuine smile because sometimes losing a skirmish foreshadows winning the war. And win hard I was about to. Their jubilation over my exit, especially Miranda ordering champagne for the office the following day, only served as proof of their ignorance. Meanwhile, I was meticulously arranging pieces on a new game board. Unknown to them, the retribution they would face wouldn't be seen until it was too late for any counteraction. This is something people fail to comprehend about revenge. It's not about anger. Anger is impulsive and irrational, leading to actions like sending angry emails at odd hours or posting inflammatory posts on LinkedIn that can harm one's career. True retribution, however, is cold and calculated. It requires patience, meticulous planning, and a relentless focus on the end goal. I spent 3 weeks in solitude, surviving on ramen and resentment, carefully crafting a plan so foolproof that when it was executed, there would be no way for them to prevent it. The first step was contacting Priya. Priya Mehta, my college friend who attended Stanford Law School while I was learning to code, now a partner at a San Francisco law firm, and someone I could call and due to the favor I'd done for her by helping her move apartments 5 years prior. Apparently, assisting someone in moving a couch up 4 stories during August has benefits that become evident when one requires legal counsel on recovering misappropriated intellectual property. I contacted her on a Tuesday afternoon, immersed in my living room amidst printed contracts and documents scattered haphazardly across the coffee table, giving the impression of preparing for a heist. In essence, I was planning a rescue. Upon answering, Priya questioned, "Do you remember when you said to call if I ever needed help?" "Well, here I am." "Oh no," she replied. "What's happened? Have you caused harm? Pray tell me you haven't caused harm." "No one has been hurt, yet, but I may need your assistance to ensure that some people regret their actions." She sat up in her chair after a brief silence. "I'm all ears." I recounted the entire ordeal, including the deception, the falsified origin story, the dismissal, and the stolen bonus. Later, I shared details about the founder agreement, granting me 22% ownership of the essential IP, an agreement they seemed to have overlooked. After a lengthy silence, she said, "So you're saying that you possess a legally binding contract giving you equity and intellectual property valued at around $19 million, and yet they've somehow managed to forget about it?" "Apparently." "Jordan, I can't believe the sheer absurdity of that claim. I had a client who attempted to trademark the phrase the. In this situation, do you have a case? Case? More like a nuclear device. We just need to strategize the ideal timing and method for deployment to maximize its effect." The discussion continued for 3 hours. By the end, we devised a strategy. A flawless, legal plan that would undoubtedly expose Miranda's fabricated founding narrative as untrue. Step 1. Establish a holding company. Something inconspicuous. Something that wouldn't appear suspicious if anyone happened to search for it online. We chose Nova Bridge Systems, incorporated in Delaware, due to its corporate laws tailored specifically for such scenarios. Priya managed all the paperwork, ensuring every detail was correct and nothing overlooked. Step 2. Transfer IP rights. This was the challenging phase where we had to ensure everything was legally sound and properly documented. Priya drafted a transfer agreement shifting the intellectual property from me personally to Nova Bridge Systems based on the original founder agreement that remained valid. We got it notarized, submitted it to the relevant authorities, making it official. The advantage lay in not requiring their consent. The original agreement specified I owned 22% of the fundamental IP. I had the liberty to handle my share as desired, including transferring it to a holding company, similar to owning 22% of a house and placing your portion into a trust. Managing your own property doesn't necessitate the approval of other owners. Step 3. Remain absolutely silent about it, which was indeed challenging. The desire to announce it online, share the situation with people, and proclaim loudly my intention to reclaim what had been stolen was strong. However, Priya insisted on maintaining silence. Silence is vital to preserve the element of surprise, she reasoned. Currently, they believe you're merely a disillusioned former employee nursing wounds. Let them continue in that belief. Let them feel secure. Let them carry on building their company, unaware they are operating on partially owned intellectual property. Thus, I opted for silence, abstained from posting on LinkedIn, avoided subtle tweets about karma, justice, or vague posts expressing anger while trying to be secretive, and even kept most of my friends in the dark about my plans. Instead, I maintained a low profile, allowing everyone to assume I had moved on. But I wasn't truly alone. This challenge was shared. Kevin, the intern who had previously informed me about my deleted photo from the website, contacted me a week after my termination via personal email. His message read, "Mate, I can no longer work there. What they did to you was unjust. If you're taking any steps to retaliate, I want to assist." Kevin, around 23 years old, still held the idealism that the world should be fair and people should be honest. Initially, I considered advising him against involvement, suggesting he merely focus on his paycheck. However, my past self echoed in my mind, perhaps someone could have helped me then. "Can you compile all evidence?" I asked him. "I've been doing that already," he replied. "Every instance of Miranda claiming credit for something she didn't do, every meeting where they discuss the company's origins, and every investor pitch where they distort history. I have recordings. Is it illegal to record conversations in California? Only if you don't disclose that you are recording. In meetings, if your phone accidentally records voice memos for personal notes, it's legal." Remarkably, Kevin proved beneficial. He attended meetings, his phone on the table recording everything, and later shared the files with me. I overheard Miranda disclose to investors that she had spent 18 months constructing the platform from scratch in her garage. I listened to Richard label me as a temporary collaborator brought in for implementation. They discussed their Series B pitch and the importance of managing the narrative surrounding the founding team. Every recording, every document, every shred of evidence was stored in a folder on my external hard drive, alongside the founder agreement and all other gathered documentation. Meanwhile, I monitored their advancements via Kevin and public information. They were preparing for their Series B funding round, aiming to secure $20 million at a $100 million valuation. They had brought in a high-end PR agency to improve their public image. In interviews with tech blogs, Miranda presented herself as a self-made female entrepreneur in technology, a portrayal that would have been uplifting if it wasn't entirely fabricated. They were constructing their domain on quicksand, unaware of the impending storm. Every week, Priya and I would meet for coffee to scrutinize our strategy, ensuring every detail was watertight and accounting for all possible scenarios. Priya drilled me on corporate law, ensuring I fully grasped our actions and why they were viable. She underscored during a $8 latte, because San Francisco is extravagant, that they had failed to effectively nullify the original founding contract. They believed it was insignificant or thought we had forgotten about it or assumed we wouldn't challenge their decision. However, legally, you retain ownership of the IP. Any company reliant on that IP could face a disputed ownership issue, implying that when they approach Series B funding, any skepticism among investors about the true owners of the essential technology may cause them to retreat. After all, nobody invests $20 million in a company with uncertain intellectual property rights. It's similar to buying a house without knowing if the seller legally owns it. I smirked. Thus, we wait until Series B. Affirming my suspicion, she agreed. We let them get close to the finish line, allowing them to believe they've triumphed, only to snatch away their success with a forceful takedown they won't see coming. The waiting was excruciating. For 3 months, I observed Miranda giving interviews, Richard Post showcasing their impressive growth on LinkedIn, hiring new staff, and acting as if they had created something themselves, rather than appropriating it from someone they had fired with a hoodie and a $50 gift card. Yet, I remained composed, patiently working on side projects, freelancing to cover my rent, and primarily waiting for the opportune moment. People inquired about my actions, my calm demeanor, and lack of retaliation. My brother even phoned me, expressing concern. "Brother, you seem unusually tranquil about this situation. Are you all right? Should I be worried?" I reassured him, stating that I was fine. In fact, I was solely concentrating on advancing myself. This was accurate. I was progressing, though not in the way people anticipated. Danielle made a few attempts to contact me, text messages expressing remorse, admitting she did not anticipate such an outcome, and stating that she had attempted to speak with her sister, but Miranda refused to listen. I remained unresponsive. What was there to say? She had sat in that conference room and watched them dismiss me, seen them humiliate me, without uttering a single word. An apology doesn't erase what happened. During those 3 months, I understood that silence unsettles the affluent. When you're quiet, when you're not protesting or complaining or making noise, they begin to question your intentions. They start to feel uneasy. I could sense Miranda's apprehension through the internet, the way she continually posted about progress and focusing on the future, as if trying to convince herself that I was truly absent, no longer a concern. But I was a concern. I represented their greatest challenge. I was merely waiting for the right moment to reveal my strategy. 3 months after being fired, Kevin sent me a message. The Series B pitch is next week. Grand Meridian Ballroom, major investor meeting. Miranda has been tirelessly rehearsing her presentation. I passed the message on to Priya. She replied with a solitary word, ideal. The moment had arrived. The time to remain silent was over. The time to be patient was finished. The time to demonstrate the consequences of stealing from someone who understands construction. The game was on the verge of becoming extremely intriguing. 3 months later, it was Series B Day. This was the day Miranda had been readying for, as if it were the Olympics, striving for victory in the fake background story contest. They reserved the Grand Meridian Ballroom, believing that nothing conveyed, "We're a struggling startup, like spending what I estimated to be at least $50,000 on a venue designed for royal weddings, $10,000 flower arrangements. And yes, I researched the price of those grandiose centerpieces, as I have a penchant for being petty. Crystal chandeliers, waiters in actual ties serving champagne, and miniature appetizers that cost $40 each and left one feeling more famished than before. The spectacle was extravagant, bordering on impressive, yet nearly so. Almost, if not for the fact that it was draining investor funds that could have been utilized for product enhancement or employee compensation, I would have found it more commendable. Despite being advised against it by Priya, I decided to attend the event uninvited. "You don't need to be there, Jordan. Let me manage the legal aspect." However, I couldn't resist witnessing this. After a wait of 3 months, I was eager for this moment. I maintained silence, exercised patience, played the long game. I felt entitled to witness the fireworks. Additionally, I possessed an advantage. My access card still functioned. Yes, you understand correctly. The individuals, these supposed visionaries in tech about to present themselves as the next major breakthrough, had overlooked revoking my building access. I learned this approximately a week after my dismissal, when I drove past the office late one night and decided to test my card on the parking garage gate out of curiosity. To my surprise, it worked. Reached the third floor by elevator. My key opened the main office door. I had the opportunity to take everything: computers, files, furniture, even the imported espresso machine that Miranda had ordered from Italy. But I didn't, because it would have been unlawful and foolish. Instead, I stored that detail as a captivating illustration of their ineptitude, waiting for the opportune time to exploit it. The opportune moment had arrived. At 6 p.m., an hour before the scheduled investor presentation, I was at the Grand Meridian. Dressed in a decent suit, not my best, but one that conveyed, "I belong here," without being too ostentatious. I strode through the main entrance as if it were mine, nodding at the security guard who was engrossed in his phone and didn't bother to request credentials, and proceeded to the ballroom level. In the Grand Meridian, the ballroom is encircled by smaller meeting rooms, each boasting glass walls offering a view into the main area. Ideal for observing presentations without physical presence or maintaining anonymity while taking in all events. I discovered an unoccupied conference room on the south side, featuring the optimal vantage point of the stage and investor seating area. I crept in, switched off the lights, and settled into a chair near the window. The entire scene unfolded before me, the stage equipped with a large screen for presentations, investors filing into rows dressed in high-priced suits, the bar section bustling as waiters prepared for the post-pitch gathering, and beyond the partitions separating the ballroom from the pre-function area, I watched Miranda performing her pre-performance routine. She was walking back and forth, rehearsing her hand movements, occasionally glancing at one of the ornamental mirrors as if preparing for an Academy Award speech rather than a funding presentation. She appeared anxious. It was appropriate. Her father, Richard, was present as well, assuming the roles of both supportive parent and chairman, intermittently placing a hand on her shoulder and whispering words I couldn't hear but could effortlessly imagine. "You can do it, sweetie. Just stay on script. They will adore you." The investors began to arrive around 6:30 p.m. Some faces were familiar from tech blogs and Forbes articles, including Sarah Chun from Red Point Ventures, Marcus Washington from Sequoia, and there, striding in as though he owned not just the room but venture capital itself, was Gregory Keating from Northbridge Capital. Keating was a legend in the VC world, traditional, possibly in his mid-60s, possessing a reputation that made founders either extremely thrilled or incredibly fearful to present their ideas to him. Known for two aspects: writing colossal checks when convinced and devastating companies upon discovery of deception. Zoe tolerance for deceit made him almost unique in the venture capital field. Earlier, Kevin informed me that Northbridge was spearheading the round. Keating himself would attend the pitch, and this moment could make or break the company. "Miranda is panicking," he wrote. "She's rehearsing answers to potential questions for 3 consecutive days now." I saw Keating settle into his front row seat, right in the center. He carried a leather portfolio, meticulously opening it to reveal what appeared to be due diligence papers. I appreciate that about him already. At exactly 7 p.m., the lights were dimmed and a spotlight illuminated the stage. Miranda strolled out, draped in a costly suit, beaming like she was on the verge of announcing life-altering news. "Good evening," she started, her voice echoing via ballroom speakers, sounding as if she'd rehearsed this moment countless times. "Thank you for your presence. I am Miranda Chon, the founder and CEO, and I am here to discuss our revolutionary approach to enterprise software." I leaned further into my seat, peering through the glass. This was promising. The presentation was everything I anticipated: sleek visuals, impressive statistics, buzzwords strategically placed to create impact. Synergy, AI integration, holistic frameworks, disruptive innovation, a jargon-filled bingo card of empty corporate phrases that somehow persuaded people to invest millions. She unveiled ascending charts, symbolizing a promising venture for investments. She discoursed on their revolutionary technology infrastructure without acknowledging its creators. She exhibited customer endorsements and financial forecasts along with market expansion slides that suggested global domination was imminent. Approximately 20 minutes later, she delved into the origin tale. I initiated this enterprise in my father's garage 3 years prior, she declared, which almost caused me to chuckle, given her ambition to revolutionize business management operations. I invested 18 months in conceptualizing and constructing the foundational platform, self-taught myself software engineering during that period. It was amusing to learn that the woman who believed additional RAM could be downloaded had mastered software engineering. Through determination and perseverance, we crafted something truly exceptional. A business currently catering to more than 500 enterprise clients, bringing in $8 million annually. The investors seemed satisfied, jotting down notes. They appeared captivated. This female entrepreneur, self-made, claimed to have built the entire company, echoing the American dream narrative. However, its authenticity was questionable. She moved to the next slide displaying our team. There were 3 photos and bios, including hers, Richard's, and Tom, the CFOs. 3 individuals who supposedly constructed this company through sheer determination and without any help from someone they let go in a hoodie. Keating inquired, causing Miranda to momentarily pause her presentation. "Yes, Mr. Keating," he asked. "I have a quick question," he continued, his tone collected. "Your documents mention Jordan Hayes, a former contractor who was dismissed 3 months ago. Could you explain his role?" My breath hitched. In the concealed conference room, Miranda's face momentarily lost color before regaining its composure. "Titan was a freelancer who contributed to some initial tasks," she responded calmly. "Exceptionally skilled programmer, but not ideal as we expanded. Our separation was amicable." Amicable? I suppose so, if you consider dismissing someone in a transparent conference room and withholding their compensation amicable. Keating nodded reluctantly. "I understand. The intellectual property Titan created during his freelance tenure is rightfully ours," she assured. "Certainly. All standard freelancer terms." "Understood," Keating said, jotting it down. "Merely ensuring all details are accounted for. Proceed with your discussion." However, her composure seemed disturbed. Her gestures were less self-assured, her smile dimmer. 10 minutes after concluding her presentation, Miranda welcomed inquiries and managed them adeptly, leaving investors contented and the atmosphere optimistic. This juncture, they believed they had triumphed. Miranda felt she had executed a successful heist, convincing everyone that she was the exceptional founder who single-handedly created everything. "I sent a message to Priya. They've completed the pitch. Keating inquired about me. She deceived. It's your turn." A series of dots appeared, followed by, "I'm on it. Stay put. This will be entertaining." Observing through the glass, I watched investors mingle, networking and enjoying champagne while chatting about market prospects and exit tactics. Miranda was at the heart of the action, radiating self-assurance as she networked, accepting congratulations like a deal already sealed. Richard was glowing with pride, almost bursting. Tom was joking around with some young investors. Kevin hid in a corner, attempting to remain unnoticed while intermittently checking his phone. He was privy to part of the scheme, enough to understand that an event was imminent, when Keating examined his device, scowled, exchanged words with his companion, who also took out their phone and began reading. Their countenances transformed from contentment to puzzlement to evident worry as they fixated on Miranda. Keating approached Richard, whispered something indistinct. Richard's smile vanished. He retrieved his phone, began scrolling, turning ghostly in less than 15 seconds. Richard seized Miranda, guided her aside, displayed his screen. Her visage shifted from puzzled to astonished to utterly terrified as she read the email, addressed to all investors, lawyers CCNG, with attachments including the founder agreement, documents, and proof. Priya had sent it. 22% of the fundamental technology is owned by Nova Bridge Systems, as the email politely clarified, which raises a significant question about intellectual property rights. Any investment made without addressing this issue carries legal risks that range from complicated at best to completely worthless at worst. The timing couldn't have been better. It didn't need to be dramatic, just accurate and impactful. The way the understanding swept across the ballroom like a contagion was more satisfying than any revenge fantasy I could conjure. Keating acted swiftly, something that instantly endeared him to me, as I observed from my concealed conference room, witnessing what felt like the most captivating performance of my life. He didn't seek a private conversation or discreetly pull Miranda aside. Instead, he approached her publicly in the ballroom, surrounded by investors still sipping champagne, and unfolded the documents he'd been carrying. The folder Kevin mentioned, titled Termination File for Jordan Hayes. "Miss Chun," Keating said sharply, interrupting the background chatter like a knife. Miranda momentarily turned, attempting to keep her CEO demeanor, likely believing he wanted to discuss terms, timeline, or typical matters during successful funding pitches. "Certainly, Mr. Keating. I trust you." He brandished the folder, causing Miranda's smile to falter mid-expression. "I've been examining your paperwork," he clarified, flipping it open. "I have some queries about your startup story." "Not about what precisely?" Keating turned his gaze on Richard directly, prompting the elderly man to step back. "Seems there was no entitlement to the equity granted to him." "Because I possess this email here," he continued, withdrawing another sheet. "From you, mister, and I recognize it because I provided it to Priya." In April 2019, an email titled Chun was sent, expressing gratitude to Jordan, our co-founder, for his crucial role in constructing our fundamental platform. "Those are your words, right?" Richard's expression changed like a fish out of water, unable to utter a word. Miranda attempted to intervene. "Mr. Keating, I assure you our corporate structure is sound. Our legal team has verified this," she said. Keating then produced a founder agreement, the one with the notary seal, which legally assigned Jordan Hayes 22% ownership of our core intellectual property. He brandished it like a prosecutor presenting evidence. "This is a signed, notarized document giving Jordan Hayes 22% ownership of your core intellectual property," he declared. "And unless I'm mistaken, and with 4 decades of reading corporate agreements under my belt, I highly doubt that. This agreement has never been overridden or annulled." The silence in that ballroom was so profound, you could have heard a share option fall. Every investor in the room now seemed as if they'd stumbled upon a hidden trap. Sarah Chun then interjected, "Are you implying there's a disagreement regarding intellectual property rights?" Keating responded, his voice even and cool. "I'm expressing my concern that the narrative we've just heard conflicts significantly with the recorded history of this company's establishment." It seems Miss Chun had spent 20 minutes detailing her self-construction of this platform. However, the documentation implies a co-founder who owned a considerable part of the technology, a co-founder she did not disclose during her presentation. "No," Miranda protested. "He wasn't a co-founder. Instead, he was an employee," she claimed. "An employee you granted shares to?" Keating inquired. "An employee your father labeled as a co-founder in writing?" In this termination agreement, an employee was allegedly denied a $250,000 performance bonus due to company restructuring 3 weeks prior to Series B. As the room looked on, Marcus Washington from Sequoia raised his hand, questioning the timing. The individual who developed the technology wasn't present and might still hold legal rights to crucial company assets, he implied. Miranda asserted there was no legal claim, but her voice lacked conviction, hinting at self-doubt. Jordan had signed standard employment agreements, yet these supposedly didn't override his founder agreement, as Keating concluded, slamming the folder shut in the quiet ballroom. "After encountering numerous pitches, meeting many founders, and assessing multiple companies, I have gained some insight." No one spoke up. Instead, they just looked on. "What I've discovered is that when the documentation and the narrative don't align, it's typically the account that's misleading. You, Miranda, claimed on stage that you single-handedly constructed this platform, self-taught in your garage, and that it was your sole creation, vision, and company. However, when I pointed out that the actual developer of the platform, whose absence you've conveniently omitted from your website, investor decks, and corporate history, still legally holds 22% equity in this venture, you hesitantly admitted, "It is my company." With all due respect, Keating continued, fixing his gaze on Miranda, the facts reveal otherwise. The person who truly built the platform, whom you've effectively erased from your public record, still legally owns a significant portion of it. Moreover, you misled us by stating that this was your accomplishment when we all know it wasn't. He picked up his folder and added, "That's fraud, Miss Miranda. Chun, and that's something I categorically won't endure." The room fell deathly still. Even the servers had paused their activities. Everyone stood transfixed, watching the scene unfold like a tragic accident in slow motion. "Mr. Keating," Richard attempted one last time, his voice faltering. "Could we perhaps discuss this privately? I'm certain we can come to an understanding." Keating's tone was as cold as ice. "Understand what?" he asked. "Understand why you dismissed your co-founder mere months before the funding round. Understand why you rewrote your company's history, expunging him from it. Understand why you withheld his rightful bonus prior to attempting to raise $20 million. He merely shook his head. "There's nothing left to discuss. The due diligence has ended." He glanced around the room at the other investors. "I advise anyone contemplating an investment in this company to thoroughly review these documents before writing any checks. As it stands, you're not investing in a company with undisputed ownership." Sarah Chun was subtly signaling her desire to depart as she stowed her phone, her composure masking an evident unease. Marcus Washington was hushed in conversation with his colleague, who rapidly typed on their device. The other investors were distancing themselves from Miranda and Richard as if they were toxic. As the proceedings concluded, Leading cast one final glance at Miranda. "Well done, Miss CEO," he said, his voice steady yet damaging. "You've just forfeited your company." With a casual stride, he exited through the ballroom doors, resembling a diner leaving an unsatisfactory meal rather than someone who had just annihilated a Series B funding round. The remaining investors gradually followed suit, not in a mass exodus, but in a steady flow over the following minutes, each inventing reasons to leave or making urgent calls. The once bustling ballroom, brimming with anticipation, champagne, and the potential of millions, swiftly vacated, as if summoned by a fire alarm. Inside me, a choir erupted Handel's Hallelujah Chorus, an orchestra in full swing, crescendoing with triumphant trumpets. I struggled to suppress laughter, to uphold some modicum of decorum. Miranda, standing amidst the rapidly diminishing crowd, exhibited a kaleidoscope of emotions at breakneck speed. Shock, denial, rage, fear. She appeared as someone who had just witnessed their universe crumble, yet was struggling to comprehend the magnitude of the catastrophe. Richard slumped in a chair, his head covered by his hands. Tom, the CFO, was on the phone, likely ringing lawyers, perhaps strategizing to transform this disaster into something salvageable. Miranda's complexion paled initially, as if every drop of her blood had been drained from her body. Her neck down to her beautifully styled face blushed deep crimson, followed by a hue of purple, a shade unseen on human complexions. It was as if I were witnessing an angry sunset, one filled with regret, consequences, and the disheartening acceptance of self-sabotage. Her mouth moved silently, words failing to emerge. She glanced at her father, who avoided her gaze. She looked at vacant seats that held millions of dollars mere moments ago. She surveyed the stage where she'd just given what she believed was a career-defining performance. And then she saw me. Across the conference room's glass partition, our eyes connected. I'm unsure if she recognized me immediately. After all, I sat in darkness, merely a shadow in an empty chamber. But when I rose from my seat, moved towards the light-bathed glass, and smiled, recognition flickered in her eyes. Not a cruel grin, nor a boastful one, but a serene, content smile that spoke volumes. "I reminded you this was mere business." Her countenance morphed into sheer terror. She gestured towards me and murmured something to her father. He glanced at me, and all remaining color vanished from his visage. I offered them a slight wave, the kind one gives to disliked neighbors. Then I departed the conference room, traversing the vacant corridors of the Grand Meridian, exiting into the night air that never smelled so delightful. In my wake, I heard shouting. Miranda's voice, tense and panicked, calling out my name. The crackling of security radios, footsteps hastening. Yet, I was long gone. 2 days hence, I received an email. The subject line read, "We must converse." It originated from Richard's personal address, not his corporate one, a revelation revealing their dire straits. When the chairperson switches to his personal Gmail for company business, it's clear things have escalated from worrying to a cause for concern our legal team warned us about. The email was a model of controlled panic. "Jordan, let's address this situation as rational individuals. I think there's been some confusion regarding your position within the company. Maybe we could arrange a coffee meeting to sort this out." A misunderstanding. Indeed, it seems we've confused ourselves into me acquiring 22% of their intellectual property and them losing a $20 million funding round. Quite an easy oversight to make. I passed it on to Priya with a brief comment, mentioning my rate per million. She phoned back within 5 minutes, almost in fits of laughter she couldn't contain. "Oh my goodness, Jordan. Have you checked out Miranda's LinkedIn post?" "No, why should I?" She shared an entire update about dedicating time towards personal development and mental well-being, which in the world of wealthy individuals translates to, "I'm lying low until things cool down. Will it cool down?" "Not at all," Priya replied cheerily. "I've already had contact from 3 of their investors. They're curious if Nova Bridge is considering purchasing them out, or if we're planning to sue, or essentially how to make this predicament disappear for them. You have them by the throat, my friend. Now we just need to decide how hard to grip." We spent a week engaged in negotiations. And when I say negotiations, I mean an intricate ballet where they attempted to lowball me, and I politely clarified, repeatedly, that they held no bargaining power. Their initial offer arrived via their corporate lawyer, a man named Stephen who sounded as if he'd prefer to be anywhere else. "Hayes, your clients have proposed a settlement of $200,000 to release all claims against their company." At the time of his call, I was in my apartment consuming cereal directly from the box due to an absence of clean bowls. Upon hearing $200,000, I repeated the figure and explained that it was less than the bonus I was already owed. "I'll decline," was my response. Mr. Hayes then expressed his belief that I might not comprehend their predicament. He elaborated that if this matter proceeded to court, it could extend for years and incur substantial legal costs. In the ensuing exchange, I requested he refer to me by my first name, Stephen. Without waiting for a response, I explained to him that I perceived his client's predicament more clearly than his own. Their inability to resolve this issue could potentially hinder their funding, company sales, initial public offerings, and general operations, effectively stalling their business growth, while I leisurely consumed Lucky Charms and enjoyed Netflix. In conclusion, unless your next proposal includes 6 zeros, our discussions are at an end. I terminated the call, and Priya immediately texted me. "Did you disconnect a call with their attorney? It appeared to be the wise decision. I adore you. Stay as you are." A second proposition arrived 2 days subsequently, worth $500,000. I calculated it at $5 million. They countered with $1 million. We were inching closer, yet they persisted in feigning alternatives. That was when Priya made her decisive move. She dispatched a letter, professionally drafted on expensive legal stationery, detailing the possible consequences if we failed to reach an accord. If no agreement was reached, we would file a lawsuit asserting our ownership of the IP. We'd petition for an injunction prohibiting their use of the platform until ownership was determined. We'd inform all their existing customers about the legal dispute. We'd contact every investor who had ever financed them. In essence, we'd legally and publicly dismantle their company, leaving behind only remorse and ashes. The correspondence concluded with, "Nevertheless, my client seeks to settle this promptly and discreetly at a fair market price for his equity share, estimated at $4.2 million according to the latest valuation utilized in your Series B documents. This proposition stands valid for the next 72 hours. This was another strategic maneuver, providing them with sufficient concern but not enough time to devise an alternative plan. They attempted to bargain for a lower price. Naturally, they did so. Tom, the CFO, contacted me personally, which was daring given our past differences. Jordan, be rational. $1 million is substantial. We just don't have that amount readily available. Then consider taking out a loan, I suggested, or liquidate an asset. Or perhaps Miranda could learn finance as easily as she learned software engineering. There's no need for hostility. Tom, you stood by silently when they dismissed me in a glass conference room. You assisted them in expunging me from the company records. In the midst of the Series B pitch, you found Miranda deceiving a crowd of investors regarding the origin of certain products. If I seem uninterested in accommodating you now, it's because I have more pressing concerns. After a brief pause, he proposed $3 million as his final offer, specifically referring to point 2. I replied that this amount was non-negotiable and pointed out the remaining 47 hours on my phone's display. The following day, Danielle contacted me, almost causing me to let the call go unanswered. However, my curiosity overpowered me. "Jordan," she pleaded, her voice betraying signs of tears, "you're tearing apart my family." I responded calmly, "I'm merely reclaiming what is rightfully mine, what has always been mine, what they stole and then tried to erase from existence. Miranda is in a state of distress, seldom leaving her apartment. My father is consulting with bankruptcy lawyers. Unfortunately," I said, expressing sincerity, "they've brought this misfortune upon themselves through their own greed and folly. It's not my responsibility to rectify a situation where I'm being undercompensated. Our marriage, Jordan, seems irrelevant now. We were married, but it's in the past. You witnessed them belittle me in that conference room, aware of the dishonesty and manipulation. You remained silent. Therefore, no, Jordan, the fact we were married holds little weight at present." I ended the call, blocked her number. Some connections you sever completely. Others you destroy from such a distance that they can never be rekindled. With just 24 hours left on the deadline, Richard himself contacted me. Not his legal representative, not Tom. He did Jordan was his name. His voice sounded worn, fatigued. "I'm sorry," he said. A genuine apology, something I hadn't heard from any of them before. "It came too late, though." "I acknowledge your sentiment," I replied. "Truly, it means a lot to me. The apology doesn't compensate for the lost time or the stolen property, so here's the plan. You must transfer $4.2 million to my account by 5 p.m. tomorrow, and then we part ways forever. If that's not feasible, I'll file a lawsuit on Monday morning, turning this private settlement into a public legal feud that tarnishes whatever remains of your company's image. You have a choice." After a long silence, the transfer was made. At 4:45 p.m., 15 minutes before the deadline, the money arrived in my account. I spent several minutes staring at my phone and checking my bank app, convinced it was an illusion. But the money was genuine. The triumph was genuine. The delayed, hard-won, and extremely satisfying justice was genuine. Immediately after Priya called, she inquired if I received it. I did indeed receive it. How does it feel? After some thought, I pondered how it felt. What was the feeling? It felt like validation. It felt like evidence that I wasn't delusional, that my efforts had significance, and that one cannot simply discard someone without facing repercussions. It felt like 3 years of labor finally receiving acknowledgement and remuneration. It felt like justice. However, primarily it felt like I could now afford therapy to deal with everything. It feels quite satisfying. I shared this with her. It feels extraordinarily satisfying. Over the following week, we finalized the documents. In exchange for payment, I relinquished all claims to the company, granting them complete, uncontested ownership of the intellectual property. They retained their business while I was financially compensated for its creation. The contract incorporated a mutual non-defamation clause, preventing either party from publicly defaming the other. I was content with that. I had no need to publicly condemn them. Winning was sufficient. Miranda didn't attend the signing ceremony. Tom and Richard, accompanied by around 7,000 lawyers, were present. In a conference room at their law firm, we finalized the papers without any prolonged eye contact or unnecessary conversations, everyone eager for the event to conclude. Upon completion, Richard extended his hand to me, but I only glanced at it before rising and leaving without uttering a word. Certain actions don't call for a reaction. Stepping outside, the San Francisco sun shone brightly, prompting me to check my account one more time. It remained there, authentic. With a payout of $2 million, excluding Priya's fee and taxes, but still in abundance greater than I ever envisioned, I texted Kevin. Fancy coffee on me. Now I can actually afford it. He swiftly replied, did it succeed? It did. Wow. Amazing news. This morning, I resigned, finding it unbearable to witness the chaos. I'm available next Tuesday if you'd like to discuss our future plans. Pondering over what was ahead, I found myself with funds, choices, and liberty freedom from worrying about meeting rent obligations. The idea of launching my own venture crossed my mind, one that would be executed flawlessly, a place where effort equates to recognition, where the title founder truly reflects, and success is collectively reaped instead of usurped. However, before embarking on this endeavor, I decided to take a break, something I haven't done in 3 years. A genuine holiday, an extravagant one, to a place I've longed to visit but couldn't afford. I navigated to Tesla's website on my phone, configured a Model S in Obsidian Black with all the upgrades, and placed an order. Then I phoned Priya, a lawyer friend who recently made me quite wealthy, asking if she fancied joining me in celebration. Of course, you didn't have to ask, was her reply. As for our destination, I confessed my ignorance. I recall places with beverages sporting umbrellas, and nobody seems to know Miranda Chin. Ideal. I'll prepare for my departure. Justice doesn't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it's an unexpected email at 4:45 p.m. on a Friday. Sometimes it's seeing 7 digits appear in your bank account. Sometimes it's the tranquil contentment of realizing that when they attempted to eliminate you, you instead reinscribed yourself into the narrative with a more prominent role and a superior conclusion. The hoodie remains in my wardrobe, nestled between my formal attire and the leather jacket I purchased to mark my millionaire status. People might find it peculiar given the story, but here's the kicker, it's no longer a reminder of the worst day professionally. It's a trophy. It's a joke. My preferred comedy prop is a cherished treasure I won't part with under any circumstances. Settled in my recently acquired space, more aptly named Holy Cow, I find myself captivated by the panoramic view of the Golden Gate Bridge from my living room vantage point, some 8 months following the closing deal. My Tesla is parked conveniently downstairs in its designated spot, a luxury purchase that set me back an additional 50 grand, yet proved priceless due to its integrated EV charger. Overall, life presents itself as exceptionally favorable. Kevin joins me on my expensive couch, purchased solely for the salesperson's claim of it being designed in conjunction with an award-winning architect, a claim translating to a price tag similar to that of a used car and shaped like a kidney bean. He is now my business partner as we collaborate on creating something innovative, superior, and ultimately equitable where contributors are acknowledged, compensated, and treated with the respect due to fellow humans rather than mere line items. Do you still have that item? Kevin queries about the hoodie visible through your open closet door, asking if it's a joke. But that hoodie is an historical artifact, destined for a museum someday, you remark. The severance package leading to numerous lawsuits, there was only one lawsuit, and you didn't initiate it. You dismiss his request for details. What truly matters, according to you, is that the hoodie symbolizes a crucial moment in tech history, a clash between corporate arrogance and its nemesis. Kevin chuckles, shaking his head, deeming you as absurd. You're wealthy and absurd, he says, which is far superior to being poor and absurd, a fact you can vouch for, having experienced both. Meanwhile, your phone signals an incoming text from Priya. Plans for dinner tomorrow. She mentions the need to discuss new venture capital interest. Additionally, she informs you that she saw Miranda's LinkedIn profile. You're intrigued and check it out, as you've earned the privilege to be petty. Miranda now lists herself as advisor and consultant instead of CEO on her profile. Her profile picture transitioned from a formal image exuding confidence and authority to an ordinary resilience quote. Her latest post highlights lessons from failures and emphasizes humility in leadership. I captured it for Kevin. Character development. I write, unfortunately, that required $4.2 million. Did she learn anything? Kevin wonders. Frankly, I'm uncertain. And frankly, I don't care. That's the charm of winning. You no longer have to care about trivial matters. She's not a concern for me. She's no longer my burden. She was once an acquaintance who made regrettable choices. I rise and head towards the wardrobe, retrieving the hoodie. It has been washed only once since it picked up the scent of loss and conference room air freshener. Now it just smells like laundry detergent and triumph. Every time I gaze at this item, it instantly recalls her words. Here, have a hoodie and $50. As if that settled everything. As if 3 years of my life were equivalent to a meal at a moderately priced eatery. Admittedly, Kevin notes, it was a fancy restaurant. $50 could cover appetizers and an entree if ordered wisely. You misunderstand me. Yes, I understand the logic. The point is they significantly undervalued you, and that wrecked them. Precisely. I carefully fold the hoodie and return it to the closet. The issue is that they viewed me as disposable. They believed they could alter history and I'd fade away gracefully, content with the scraps they gave me. The doorbell rings. It's the delivery, Thai food from a place known for its exorbitant prices yet famous for its pad Thai, which tastes like it was sanctified by angels. $40 tip for the delivery person, since I have the means. Money lets one brighten others' days, reminding me of the times when each penny mattered and affordability was a concern. Kevin and I indulge in our meal, prompting his frequent query, "What's next? You've triumphed, you've earned validation, your new venture is emerging. So, what lies beyond victory?" I ponder this while savoring a spring roll. What awaits after winning? After the battle, validating my stance, obtaining justice in its most tangible form. I construct something superior. I finally admit it. I create something to prevent others from facing the same ordeal. A place where founders truly represent their title, where equity carries true meaning, where efforts are rewarded and inventions are credited. You sound like an inspirational quote. Perhaps I am just that. $4.2 million and grudge transformed into a business strategy. Richard Chun endorses me on LinkedIn for software architecture. The man who dismissed me, erased me, watched silently while his daughter revised history to ignore my existence, publicly acknowledged my proficiency in the very foundation of his company. This leaves Kevin speechless, spitting out his Thai iced tea. Is he sincere? I ponder if it's a peace offering. I feign preoccupation with my phone. I sense it as an indirect apology without uttering the words, "I'm sorry." Should I accept it? My thumb hovers over the delete button. I could erase this endorsement. I could block him. I could spend years demonstrating my anger. Or should I just let it be? Let it remain as a peculiar, awkward confirmation of my rightfulness and their error. History was revised, despite the hefty $4.2 million price tag. I left LinkedIn undisturbed with the endorsement intact. Funny, isn't it? Let him endorse me. It remains on my profile as a testament to his eventual acknowledgement of truth. That's quite mature of you. I'm evolving as an individual. Money often fosters such generosity. Kevin lifts his Thai iced tea to displaying grace. I tap my beer bottle against his glass to being magnanimous and to expensive hoodies that cost companies millions of dollars. A few weeks later, I encounter Blake again. Blake Chun, unrelated to Richard and Miranda, praise be, who assumed the CEO role after Miranda's mental health hiatus became a permanent resignation. We catch up over coffee at this trendy spot in Mission District that serves lattes with complex foam art, almost too beautiful to drink. "I wanted to express my gratitude," Blake says, stirring his exorbitantly priced beverage. "You know, for not wrecking the company. You could have done so. You were justified in destroying everything. I must confess I contemplated it myself. Yet, upon consideration, I recognized that approximately 40 employees were innocent in the matter at hand. They were simply doing their jobs and striving to meet their financial obligations. It didn't seem fair to annihilate their livelihoods because of my anger towards the founders. That was surprisingly sensible. Let's keep this under wraps. I need to preserve my image as a vengeful tech pioneer. Blake chuckles. Listen, I understand there is animosity, clearly. However, the platform you created is robust and reliable. In fact, it's thriving, profitable, and making a positive impact. And everyone there knows you were instrumental in its creation. I ensured that your contributions were recognized. Your name is once again displayed on the website, in the credits, and in the company history where it belongs. As expected, when I checked their website on my phone, I found a dedicated section, Our History. And there, in the second paragraph, was my name. Co-founder Richard Chun and Jordan Hayes established the company in 2019 with a straightforward vision. It isn't a solution or a chance to alter the past, but it's still something truth openly disclosed in writing for all to see. I thank Blake. It means quite a lot. He mentions some upcoming unique features we are developing. Maybe you'd like to offer advice. Of course, fairly compensated. No equity complications. No founders' disagreements. Just helping us create something exciting. I ponder it. A part of me wishes to decline, maintaining the grudge, vowing never to collaborate with that firm again in any manner. But another part, the one that appreciates construction, misses technical puzzles, recalls the times when work was only about the work, is intrigued. Give me the specifications. I reply, I'll weigh my options. Fair enough. We seal the deal with a handshake. I comprehend this is a resolution, genuine closure. The reference isn't about legal contracts, but human resilience. Moving on because bitterness is tiresome and life is too brief for nurturing old grievances. In my apartment that night, I approached the closet again. There, the hoodie dangles, a corporate trinket once intended as an insult, but transformed into something else entirely. Hey, old pal, I address it, since I'm solitary and communication with apparel seems to be my new norm. Thanks for the $4.2 million, I utter sincerely. That hoodie was meant to wound pride, a final affront, a meager reward for someone considered disposable. Yet, it turned into an emblem instead. An emblem of the moment when others underestimate you, when they perceive you as lacking intelligence, tenacity, or anger. That's precisely when you hold the edge. My former spouse called unexpectedly last week. Miranda was her message, claiming she didn't intend to be hurtful when taking back what was rightfully mine during our settlement. She mentioned they were facing hardships as a family and suggested we might try again. I responded concisely, assuring her there was no need for worry. I hadn't meant it differently either in that instance. Afterwards, I blocked her number permanently. Some stories conclude, and rereading them isn't necessary. I've discovered that justice doesn't always arrive with fanfare, as I once thought. It doesn't usually resemble the films where the protagonist delivers a stirring speech, everyone applauds, and a moral lesson about righteousness is taught. Sometimes, justice is silent. Sometimes it's just a confirmation email arriving at 3:47 in the afternoon, verifying that the transfer was successful, the numbers in your account are genuine, and you've emerged victorious. Times justice can be a hoodie hanging in your wardrobe, meant to belittle you, but instead becoming the catalyst for your upcoming endeavors' financing. At other times, justice means realizing that when they attempt to obliterate you, you pen a new narrative where you're the main character, not a footnote. Justice can also be the freedom to order Thai food without fretting over costs, tipping handsomely, driving a Tesla, and enjoying peaceful slumber knowing truth is more costly than deception, yet it's a worthwhile investment. The hoodie remains in your closet, not concealed in shame, but proudly showcased, serving as a testament that regardless of how much someone tries to undermine your worth, you get to determine your own price. My value, it seems, equates to $4.2 million plus interest, the success of a new company, and the pleasure of watching those who considered themselves untouchable learn an expensive lesson about arrogance. Quite a turnaround for someone once dismissed with promotional goods and a gift card. Not too shabby at all.